Hey everybody, this is Robert with RC Archery, and you are watching Tuesday's Tip of the Week number 70. This is video 2 in our form development series. If you haven't watched video 1 yet, I will put a link here. Go check that out. We talked about our stance, the basis behind the biomechanics on what that adjusts for us on a natural point of aim horizontally, so left and right. Basically, we were talking about how to keep ourselves in the middle of the target, whether you have a shot that breaks too early for whatever reason, or if you're having to hold for a really long time, it allows you to stay as close to center as possible just naturally. In today's video though, we are going to be taking this onto the next step. We're going to be looking at our grip, how to stabilize our shoulder and how that grip plays into that. And then we're also going to be talking about drawing motion and setting our draw length. So this is a good video. It's an excellent place to start if you are a new archer or if you are that intermediate archer wanting to get to the next step. This will help you a lot. All right guys, let's start out and let's talk about our grip. Now, what I'm going to be going over here is going to allow for a few things to happen. One is I will show you a way to grip the bow to help you take out most, if not all, torque on the bow, left and right movements, and messing with that through execution. And also, it's going to help you set up your shoulder and your forearm and the bones in your arm with your bow hand in order to seat the shoulder and allow it to hold itself in the joint best. Now, to start out, let's talk about parts of the hand and how that all works out. When we're talking about our grip and our hand, we're wanting to make sure that we aren't crossing over that lifeline and getting into that pinky ring finger side of our hand. We want to stay on the thumb pad side of our hand. The reason we want to do that is for a couple things. One, when you start crossing over on that bow hand and getting into the outer part of the hand as well, any small movements that we do magnify a ton because we're bending our hand and twisting the riser and twisting the grip in our hand back and forth. The second thing is there is a flat spot here on our hand, and if we can get to this on our thumb pad, then we can allow ourselves to have the most consistent anchor or consistent grip position from one shot to the next. The grip that I teach people is to take our middle, our ring finger, and our pinky fingers and curl them into our hand. Now you'll see when you do this, it creates a natural little pocket here to keep you on that thumb pad side. It's perfectly okay if the grip is running along that lifeline. Don't let it cross over it though. But if the edge of the grip is coming right at the edge of that lifeline, especially if you have a grip with a really wide setting on it, that's probably going to happen, but that's okay as long as we're not crossing over. When we're getting this into the bow, what we want to make sure we're doing is we don't want our thumb to go too vertical. The old adage of how to look at this is a roughly 45-degree angle with the back knuckles on our hand. If you're curling these fingers into the palm of your hand and then setting them into the bow on that thumb pad side in that pocket, it will naturally get you into that 45-ish degree area. Everybody's hand's built a little different. Everybody's grip's going to be a little different. But overall, you're going to see something like this right here. Now, our thumb and our ring or our index finger, we're not gripping into the bow and squeezing the grip. We want these to be loose. We want them to not have a lot of tension in them. And then during the shot, we don't want to be moving our fingers around. That's why I initially started teaching this grip and this way of getting there is because I was working with several archers and they had a tendency to stretch their fingers out during execution or curl them in. And what we were seeing when they were doing that is when they were holding the bow and they were moving the fingers out or curling them in, you can see it torques the riser. It moves the bow. So we don't want that to happen. Curling our fingers into our palm allows us a consistent starting point, and at first you may have to have a little tension there and a little firmer grip and tension in the hand in order to bypass that habit of wanting to move the fingers. But after you get to a point where you're not doing that anymore, then try to have it as soft as possible through your whole hand to where you're not inputting a lot of torque or doing anything crazy with your grip. All right, so our next step is taking that good grip that we just created there and taking that a step further and introducing a drawing motion. Now, Real quick, let's talk about what we're doing with our hand and seating the bow shoulder and how all this works together. With you not holding your bow, with not holding any weight, I want you to hold your hand straight out to your side with your thumb horizontal. And then I want you to turn the thumb vertical. Do this a couple times. You can do it slow, fast, however you want to do it. Feel what it's doing to the shoulder. As your thumb gets more vertical, it's changing the shoulder point and hinging it up. It's taking it from seating in the socket and it's actually pulling it out and then bringing it up. So when we aren't crossing over that lifeline and we're setting up the correct grip, we're allowing the shoulder to naturally set in. When you repeat this drill holding a gallon of water or just something with a little bit of weight, you can magnify the effects of this and really see what it does to your shoulder. So you can imagine that if you are drawing incorrectly, holding the bow incorrectly, you are really pulling that shoulder up and you're losing all sense of stability. You will see this right away. You'll notice a lot of bobbing up and down on target because your shoulder joint is not connected and it's not holding itself. It's literally set up like a triangle and it just does this the whole time. So it's really bad. Now, when I work with archers on drawing their bow, I have a set way that I want them to do it, and I will explain why. So what we're looking for when we're drawing the bow back is to take our hand right from our side and then lifting it up naturally. Doing this without any weight, it's really simple. We're not stretching out, we're not pulling the shoulder back in, our scapula back over, we're just a natural position to just lift straight up. That's allowing our shoulder joint to be in a position that as we incorporate my drawing motion, it will naturally seat that shoulder joint into place. From there, when we add the bow in, we are actually going to take our hand slightly above the shoulder before we start drawing back. We don't want it way up here, we're not sky drawing, but when our hand is just above the shoulder joint and we go to draw that bow back, we are actually creating a direction of energy to force itself through our arm, the bones, and into this shoulder joint. And by doing this, we are actually naturally setting that joint in place as we draw the bow back. If you can't do this because of some form flaws, you can see it on video and you can correct it pretty easily. However, if you are overbowed and drawing too much weight back, or if you have too much weight stacked on stabilizers, you need to adjust that while you're building up your archery strength until you're able to get back to that. Doing this incorrectly is really bad and robbing a lot of accuracy and holding still capability, but it's also putting some added stress and strain on your joints, and we just want to stay away from that because long term, with the vibrations that go through our body when our shot breaks, and with the repetitive use of these muscles while we're drawing, we're going to start to break down and cause some issues, and we don't want any shoulder impingements. We don't want anything bad happening. So the other reason that I have archers draw back with their hand just slightly above the shoulder is that when you look at this like a seesaw, if you have weight on the seesaw and anything level here and balanced is great. But as soon as you tip that seesaw and get a little bit below that balance point, it drops. So it's the same thing when we're looking at holding up the weight of our bow. When we are drawing and getting into anchor, even anchoring in with our hand at the height of our shoulder or even slightly above the shoulder, we're taking the weight of the bow itself and we're transferring it into the core of our body. That allows all of these larger muscles in our back, our chest, our shoulder, our neck, the core muscles, our shoulders stacked over our hips stacked over our feet. All of that is working for you then, and it's allowing you to help hold the bow up. It's also taking some of the stress and strain off the shoulder and the bicep of having to force you to hold the bow up. So it's going to help you with your vertical stability a ton. You won't see very many bobbles that way. You won't see as big of bobbing motion or anything like that. So make sure that as you draw, you're slightly above, you settle into anchor. You can maintain slightly above or just kind of a natural level position there. Typically, what I see is archers will naturally balance themselves out if they start with their hand above the shoulder when they draw. So make sure you're using that correct drawing motion and seating that shoulder correctly to allow you to be able to have the most accuracy on target. All right, now we're going to talk about setting our draw length. This is probably the main part of why you're watching the video, but the first two steps you have to be able to get accomplished in order to be able to set your draw length effectively. Let me explain why. It will all make sense as we're working through this and getting to the end. Now, with that being said too, if you would like me to work with you and basically take the guesswork out of setting your draw length, so using the computer program that I created, the knowledge of working with so many people to kind of take a lot of the guesswork out, take a lot of the middle ground out and speed this process up, down in the description below in this video, there's a link. You can email me, and there's also a link to my website so you can see my coaching packages and what they entail. And if you want to do that, that's an option. If you want to self-diagnose yourself and go through that platform, this video is going to show you how to do this. And then in my members only video, so if you are a subscriber to this channel in a membership platform, you are going to get a video today that talks about fine-tuning these and the steps that I take to keep from having to deal with peep rotation and really dialing it in to get you perfect. All right, now with all that being said, the first thing that we're wanting to do is use that good drawing motion that we just learned, and we want to draw the bow back with our eyes closed. While we're doing this, video yourself, have someone watch you, snap a picture at the end, something of that nature. You want the camera to be somewhere around chest to head height, and you want it facing you to the side to where you're holding the bow like this. The reason that we're doing this with our eyes closed is when we have our eyes open and we draw the bow back, we naturally start trying to gravitate our head up and down and see through the peep side and get into our anchor and adjust our head, neck, and body and do everything. We want to avoid that because right now we're just trying to figure out if the way that our bow is set up is correct, because we always want to change the bow to our form instead of changing our form to whatever the bow is set up. It's a mechanical device, it's a tool, it's what we're using, but it's adjustable, so we want to make sure we're doing that and we stay as biomechanically sound as possible. So again, like in the first video, all of this and all of my platform on how I do this is all about biomechanics and trying to get as close to 100% body efficiency as possible. So that means straight lines, connecting our joints, using leverage points to be able to take some of the weight off, like what we learned before in the last segment, and some things that we'll learn in the next video next week over our loop length and leverage over the bow and how we're holding on target, and then even further down the line with stabilizers and tiller tuning and loop height up and down the string, like all kinds of stuff. So all of that will be in future videos in the future series of form or tuning and shot execution. It's going to be really cool as we go. So again, do this drawing motion, keep your eyes closed. Once you get back here, you may find that the string won't come to your face. You may find that it comes past your face. That's the areas that we're looking for. We are wanting to find an ideal anchor point of light pressure on our nose with our head in a vertical position, not leaning over and not leaning back. And we want the string to come across the corner of our mouth. If you have a shorter axle to axle bow, a smaller hunting bow, that string angle gets a little sharper. It's going to come a little further back than a longer axle to axle target bow. Those bows, they stay a little further forward because of that string angle. So keep that in mind. Just because we work through this process with one bow and it's a perfect draw length, you may have to micro adjust that and change it a little bit from one bow to the next, or a lot from one bow to the next, depending on those variances. The main thing that I will say is, as a reference, especially with the shorter axle to axle bows, don't let the knot come back behind the corner of your eye here. If it's coming back further than that, you're too long on your draw length no matter where it's hitting on your face. And a lot of times what I see is people, especially with an index release, have their anchor point too far down and they need to bring it back up, take this knuckle, bury it into your ear, or do something to where you're a little higher up and more naturally pulling that string into your face and allowing for clearance. Coming too far back, having that anchor point too far down on the face is asking for problems because it's digging the string into our cheek and our jaw, and it's just going to create some issues with the arrow, fletching, string. We want to eliminate as much facial contact as possible because that takes a lot of the variance left and right away once we start shooting. When you're doing this drill and you're looking back at the photo or the video and you're seeing the string in front of your face or behind your face, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning if your string is an inch in front of your face or an inch behind your nose, you won't adjust the draw length 1 inch longer or 1 inch shorter. And the reason for that is when our hand is naturally going up and down our jaw, it's changing the height of the anchor point, and our string angle is adjusting a little bit based on how long that draw length is going. So that's where I was telling you before, it's a little bit of a guesswork at first to try to get it to that position. Trial and error, you know, if you're doing this on your own, but that's part of the process. If you are a brand new archer, ordering a bow, getting set up for the first time, hold your hand out to the side in that motion that we talked about of just raising it straight up. Measure from the base of the palm of your hand to the center of your sternum. That measurement will get you generally pretty close to start with on a draw length, and then you can do this drill and you can find out from there what you're doing. Now, as you're doing this and you're fine tuning it from the initial adjustment, when you are too short on draw length, a lot of the times what we're seeing is a buzzier, like twitchier movement on the target. And this is because our body has just too much leverage and too much movement allowed on the bow. A lot of the times too, when our bow's draw length is too short, when we shoot through and pull through and execute our shot, we will push to the left as a right-handed archer or to the right as a left-handed archer. And that's because our arm has too much movement to come out away from our body. Now, keep in mind, I split the body in half when we're looking at this. Our front half of the body is from the middle of our sternum to the bow, and our back half of the body is from the middle of our sternum through our release arm. This is a marriage of links that we're trying to find in order to find our best float on target. So next week when we look at loops and we look at leverage and our adjustments, this will all come together and you'll have the full picture then. But for today, we are trying to dial in just our shoulder. So we are finding the best draw length and the best float possible for just the bow's adjustment and setting the shoulder to be as stable as possible. If our draw length is too long, our shoulder gets a little bit too outstretched, string comes a little bit too far back on us, we have to kind of adjust and move, we will see slow, loopy swoops of movement. It will also feel like our bow is really heavy and it's harder to hold it up on target. So those are some areas to look at as you're adjusting your draw length and fine tuning and micro tuning on it and getting everything to be as perfect as possible before we go to our loop length. All right guys, if you like this video and continue to want to follow this form development series, then our shot execution series and our tuning series, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, have the bell on for your notifications. Also, if you would like to be a member of this channel and get additional info with every video of these that get put out, to have more behind the scenes info, direct info that people only get when I work with them on coaching, there's two options for that. One, you have access to all the videos that we're talking about. And then the second option is all of those videos plus access to me for coaching. And both of those are down in the description of this video. You can click on the join link and it will spell that out for you and let you decide which one you may want to do. For those of you that already are a member of this channel, I appreciate that. I appreciate you if you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you like this video. That helps with the algorithm here on YouTube. And if you're a member, check out the video today. It shows you fine tuning on how to adjust our draw length so we don't have to worry about twisting of our peep and dealing with that, and also how to get the bow exactly perfect for what you need on your face with minimal adjustments and minimal changes to peak weight, holding weight, and overall just adjustments of the bow. Thank you again for watching, guys. I'll see you soon.